That's right. It is Monday, January 5th, 6 p.m., as we are every Monday night here at the Wolverine. First Monday show of. Oop, my siren went off here already. We'll hear that in a little bit. First Monday show of 2026. It is a busy time for Michigan football. New staff in place around Kyle Whittingham. We'll talk about that. Transfer portal heating up with both portals portals out. Target board, hot board starting to take shape. And now we've been tracking transfers out. We've been tracking potential transfer targets. And now, Clayton, we get to track guys who are staying here anyways. So we get to track all of it now. It's a cornucopia of roster news here at the Wolverine.
It is, and Clayton Safety here with Anthony Broom, just to for the people.
That's right. That's who we are, by the way. You should know that.
The audio side. First show I'm doing indoors in a couple weeks here, unfortunately, or fortunately, because it's cold out, so I don't want to do it outdoors now that I'm back in Michigan. But excited to be back. It was a good trip to Orlando. Obviously, Michigan didn't get the result that they wanted, but who knew that there would be an introductory press conference down there? It was productive. Anthony, I hit Disney, Epcot on New Year's Day. I think I mentioned that on the last podcast maybe, but that ended up happening.
Yeah. I got a little people you may know action in my Facebook feed. It looked like you hit more than just Epcot. I saw you in front of Star Wars Land.
Yes, we made a quick stop at Hollywood Studios. So that didn't do any rides there, but we did the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. And I'm not even a big Disney guy. Now people are going to think I'm a nerd, but no, it was a good time. Was watching college football on my phone, the Rose Bowl in line, 2 hours for one of the rides, but had some drinks around the world. It was a great time, even though I'm much out of the age range of – I'm not out of the age range for drinking around the world, but I'm out of the age range probably for most of the activities out there at Disney. But it was a good time.
It is a good time. I'll just say I've been to those parks a number of times. My family's going to be going down there in a few weeks to do the Universal parks. And I wish it were during football season and bowl season, because I'd have to imagine that does make those waits in some of those lines that you stand in a little more palatable. It's a lot of hurry up and wait when you take in the theme park scene, but we're glad to have you back. Of course, we could have, I should set this up. So apparently there is around 3:30, Michigan football on social media tweeted out a GIF of Tom Brady yelling LFG. You can Google what that means.
What does this stand for?
I'll just let you Google it.
Let's effing go.
Let's bleep and go. Let's effing go. Sure. It's a family program here, of course. Even more so. Sometimes when the walking swear jar, Chris Ballas, isn't with us. But we hope he's feeling a little bit better, though, coming off the trip. Feel bad for the guy. Back to what I was saying. LFG with the GIF of Tom Brady. Now, mind you, this comes a couple hours after, well, really several hours after Kyle Whittingham was on with Dave Portnoy and Wake Up Barstool this morning. Was asked about Bryce Underwood and said they could be close to an announcement. And then, so people are kind of taking the breadcrumbs and think, oh, well, they're teasing a Bryce Underwood announcement. Well, the announcement that followed about a half hour later was offensive tackle Blake Frazier. And then about another half hour, 40 minutes after that, it became clear that this LFG thing, LFG 147, is a campaign that they're going to start announcing guys that are set in stone to return to next year's team. So we have a tracker up over on the site. Guys could announce or tweet out their graphics during the show. And if they do, that's where this little thing will come in handy.
Wait, we have one just now.
Do we have one just now?
Sound the alarms. We have a new announcement of a player that's going to be staying for Team 147. It's up on the screen right now, Anthony.
Is it? Oh, my God. I actually was clicking over to Twitter. This is a graphic of Clayton Safety, by the way. Is that you in your little backpack at Disney?
That's actually me. It's some bad Photoshop work by me, although it was not that bad, actually. No, that's a photo of me before or after one of the practices down in Orlando.
Gotcha. That's the mock-up that we'll send to Aaron Bills.
For those on the audio side, it's me announcing that I'm going to be covering Team 147. God willing, and the creek don't rise. No man knows the future, but I plan to be covering Team 147 in 2026.
Well, I'm under contract, and I don't shop myself around, so I too will be here. So consider that two feathers in the cap for the coverage of this team. So as we said, right now, two guys in there. It's Blake Frazier, Andrew Babalola. We assume these are just going to keep rolling out over the next several days, hours, whatever it is. So we'll be tracking that over at the site. And like I said, if we do stop abruptly, again, we're not going to talk about each and every guy on the roster, but as names come in, we will certainly keep you updated here on the live stream. We will also talk Kyle Whittingham's staff that is more or less in place. I mean, a couple support staff and a lot of, front office stuff that needs to be sorted out still, but coaching staff mostly set. Your coordinators are Jason Beck and Jay Hill on offense and defense, respectively. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the early kind of board that's emerged in the transfer portal. Get into a little bit of Michigan hoops, the number 2 team in the country, who's little by little, drip, 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 getting a little bit closer to that number 1 ranking. And the 30-point beatdowns of good teams will continue until that ranking improves. So we will talk about all that like we do every week. Take your questions to end the show real quick. Sorry, there are a million tabs pulled up. We are sponsored tonight by our friends over at Rhoback. Change the game with Rhoback, a proud partner of the Wolverine. Get the best fit and the best feel with their incredibly comfortable activewear. There's a Rhoback shirt on right now since Rhoback is returning to the pod. This is a shirt from their Michigan collection. This pattern are all Michigan Stadium, if you're watching on the screen. Big house on a polo shirt here. So those are pretty sweet. From polos to quarter zips to shorts, Delta Performance pants. You will look good and feel good with Rhoback. So use promo code MCH for 20% off your first purchase at Rhoback.com. That is promo code MCH at Rhoback.com.
MCH20 at Rhoback.
MCH20. I'm sorry. I was working off old information here. So this is MCH20 for $20 off your first purchase at Rhoback.com. I have this. I think we both got a couple of the hooded T-shirts. Incredible, outstanding stuff. So support the folks over there at Rhoback. We are also brought to you tonight by ourselves at the Wolverine. While transfer portal season is in high gear, coaching transition season in high gear, you can join our site for 50% off as a new subscriber. That's going to get you onto the message board. It's going to get you the intel, the analysis, anything you could possibly think of as it pertains to the transfer portal, recruiting, coaching transition, all of it is available to you with that. It's going to get you full access to On3 and Rivals as well, and a year of access to our friends over at The Athletics. So take advantage of that deal today. Well, there's a lot of directions we could go with this. I think what we'll start with is we'll kind of start with player retention and go into the transfer portal. As I said earlier, Bryce Underwood has not said either way. Now it seems like all the tea leaves would suggest he's going to stay at Michigan. But like we said before, Kyle Whittingham was on Wake Up Barstool this morning. Dave Portnoy asked him straight up, said, hey, is it a continued recruitment of him? Is it, has he made a decision yet? Is this an everyday we're talking type of thing? And Whittingham said, and I quote, I think Bryce is in a good place right now, and I think he might be getting an announcement here pretty soon. He seems to really enjoy his time here. He has enjoyed his time here and is one of the team leaders. He's a young guy, but one of the team leaders, obviously by virtue of the position. So he is a guy that we think is going to be a part of what we're doing going forward. But you gotta ... You never know until it's a done deal. Bryce Underwood's a guy they've talked about. Since Whittingham has been here, they've always talked about him as being in their plans as long as he decides to stick around. And it seems like there's momentum here that maybe this LFG 147 campaign is ultimately paid off, with that Underwood announcement.
And you want that announcement out there as soon as possible, a few hours if you want to roll it out and kind of keep that excitement building with different players. That's fine. But you want to get that out there as soon as possible because, Anthony, when you look at the targets that Michigan has in the portal right now, or at least the ones that we know about so far, a lot of them are wide receivers. You're losing 2 out of your 3 starting receivers this year, 2 out of the 4 guys that were in the rotation. Andrew Marsh, as of now, coming back, or at least hasn't left. But, you need some wide receivers, and those guys want to know exactly who their quarterback is. And it's easier to convince them that a guy is going to be here at quarterback if it's officially out there, and the word is actually posted on social media, rather than just them trusting the coach's word. So that's important. It seems like it's been kind of trending that way. There hasn't been much buzz that Bryce Underwood's going to leave, although nothing really should surprise anybody in today's day and age. But I do like how they started it out with the offensive linemen, a couple of them. And that's important too, because you did lose a couple offensive linemen to the transfer portal. Jake Guarnera at right guard, Andrew Sprague at right tackle, some other reserve offensive linemen. But and those guys could come back still. I think especially Guarnera, that's a guy you want to prioritize and basically attack that recruitment as if it is a recruitment. And he's a portal player himself. But having locking down Blake Frazier, Andrew Babalola, that's big for the tackle spot going forward. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this rolls out. But the LFG campaign, I can't say I've seen Michigan post too many acronyms that have a swear word in there like that, but it's a new day for Michigan.
Yeah, that's kind of it's kind of I don't know what the word is. A little risque by Michigan standards. Usually
right.
It's something
I love it.
It's something cutesy that leans on the those who stay thing. And that's, what some guys will inevitably tweet out and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get too hung up in the fact that we're now in an era where now you announce when you're transferring out, you announce when you're transferring in, and now guys are just announcing when they're sticking around. But I do think in this situation, when you have, the winds of change blow through as vigorously as they have into Ann Arbor, into this football program, I'm here for it, because regardless of who we think Kyle Whittingham and this very good staff are and can be, it is still a coaching transition. And you see a lot of other schools who change coaches and lose 30 to 40 guys, or Penn State's probably going to have 60-ish new players this year. And I don't think we get super close. I don't think we get even close to that with Michigan. I think the current number is 19. I don't know. Sorry, I hit the horn again. That was a false alarm. Got to set it to the side. Yeah. Got to set it to the side so we don't break news accidentally here. Michigan's at 19 guys right now, and I don't want to say that I don't know that much more is coming. I do think we are in kind of a calm before the storm in terms of a second wave of portal activity just nationwide. But in the here and now, you did the Sting Factor article, I think Sunday, which was outstanding. And I pretty much am in line with all of those. Outside of like Cole Sullivan is one that right now I think hurts, but they have a chance to retain. You flip over to the other side of the ball, Jake Guarnera, right in that same bucket. But other than that, I'm sitting here feeling like in the here and now, as of Monday, January 5th at 6:15 p.m., I'm not so worried about what they're losing in the aggregate.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess, how it continues to progress, because you never know. Like you said, there could be a second wave and some guys enter, and I think, you're seeing guys evaluate what the targets look like too. Like, who are they going to bring in? Are they trying to replace me? And maybe that's evident when you have the conversations with your coaches, and how much they're willing to pay you also speaks volumes about, where you stand on the depth chart or projected depth chart and all that. You've seen 4 starters leave, which is pretty significant. Zeke Berry at corner. You have the offensive lineman we mentioned, and then Cole Sullivan. I rated him as a 9 out of 10 Sting Factor, just because I think he's a guy that literally every team in the country would take on their defense right now. I was talking about that, when with some reporters after the game on New Year's Eve, when he kind of gave an answer that was a little bit non-committal about next season. And I said, it's probably the smart move for him to get some more leverage there. And I think we talked about this on the show on New Year's Day. It's kind of the smart business move. And then later that day, I think it was, he entered the transfer portal, maybe the next day. But either way, that was, I guess it had to be the next day, open on the 2nd. But you don't even remember what day it is anymore this time of year. But That one really does hurt, especially because you're pretty thin at linebacker. Jimmy Rolder can come back. He's got an NFL draft decision to make. That would be huge to get him back as well. But when I did the article a few weeks ago of players that Michigan can least afford to lose, Jake Guarnera and Cole Sullivan were right up there as 2 of the 6 that I mentioned. So, that stings a little bit. Zeke Berry, I think you can replace him with some of the young corners you have, although Elijah Dotson heads to the portal too. But you're going to get guys in. I think really we're seeing that there are a lot of viable options for Michigan from former Utah players, BYU players, even a Boise State safety that's in the portal right now that could come with Tyler Stockton, the new safeties coach. They got some DBs they have in mind, so maybe it explains Zeke Berry leaving or some of the other reserves leaving, like Jaden Mangum, who's off to Purdue. So, it's one of those things that you don't quite have all the pieces. You can't put the pieces of the puzzle together. We don't even have all the pieces yet. They're still in the box because you see a guy leave, but you don't know what exactly it means. Does it mean they're getting another guy somewhere else? We just don't know it yet. So we have to just wait and see how it plays out. But it's on this staff to work really diligently, very quickly to put this all together.
And I know there's been a lot of discussion about why the slow start and why are they sitting on their hands and why. First off, there's a couple reasons for it, and it's not an excuse. It's just the reality of their situation, in that we are in such like a easy button, gotta have it now society. So when there's not tangible information to sink your teeth into, you're wondering, well, what's the reason for all the inactivity? What's going on? Why what's this? What's that? And I'll just say with this coaching staff, these guys showed up, and many of them just off a plane to the basketball game on Friday night. They hadn't even been at Schembechler Hall yet. So there are player meetings that have taken. I mean, let's be honest here. Because there was a self-imposed, and here we go, Michigan in the self-imposed stuff again. There was a self-imposed kind of pause on negotiations and getting guys locked in and things like that. I think that's kind of where the initial wave of this portal activity comes from, in some of the uncertainty with those types of guys. But this staff is, they have to do basically 5 weeks worth of work in the 2 weeks that they've been allotted here. And that's not making an excuse for them. I think they have the chance and are working on some pretty big things behind the scenes. But at the same time, like, this time crunch has very little to do with Kyle Whittingham and his staff, and to a little, to a lesser extent, maybe Sean McGee, the front office. But this is a Sharon Moore issue, because this program was ripped. Any momentum they had was ripped out root and branch when he was fired on December 10th. And yeah, it was nice to get Kyle Whittingham down to Orlando as fast as possible so he could start meeting with players. But the work in earnest, outside of these individual player meetings that they've had, didn't start until last Friday, or late last week after the bowl game. So there's time to get back on track. There's time to settle down and settle in, and it seems like they kind of are right now. But these guys might even be saving on. I wrote this last night. They might not even be paying hotel fees or Airbnb fees right now, because they might just have an air mattress at the facility with all the work that they have to do. So I'm not making an excuse for them, but that is the reality of their situation. They're going to lose guys. They're going to get some guys. And on January 16th or slightly later, as guys still commit after they've already been in the portal, we'll have a lot better idea of what this team is going to look like.
Whittingham was hired less than 10 days ago. And, then the staff comes together the way it does. And like you said, he had to tell his Utah team that he was leaving. Like, he had some things to do. Then he finally gets to Orlando, I think on that Saturday, and then is meeting with players. So, he probably didn't even know who his GM was or what the infrastructure looked like at the time for, a few hours at least. And, by the time they connect and all that, I mean, then you're behind everybody else. It's not just that you had a start that was just before the transfer portal opened. It was that everybody else was working on poaching players, including your own, for weeks and weeks and weeks into the season. I mean, you hear rumblings throughout the year. I heard things about different wide receivers Michigan was going to target back in August, like before the season, for after the season. Of course, now it's a new staff, and you never know. A lot of that, ends up not coming to fruition, and teams, retain their players and everything else. But, it's craziness out there. And, your coach was the head coach of Utah, just a couple of weeks ago. So they got to make up the ground there. But, that's what, to me, it makes it even more important to keep the young guys, especially that are already here, which was why the Cole Sullivan departure, Jake Guarnera, those were disappointing. Although, again, other teams could, try to tamper with them or back channel with them for weeks here. So it's just a tough situation to be in. But I do think they can make up the ground and put together a good roster here. It's just that right now we haven't seen it come together. I think, just one reported visitor that's coming, Smith Snowden, the corner from Utah. He is slated to visit. We could see more of that in the coming days. But other schools are already landing transfers. You've seen it with schools that are in the CFP. Indiana, for example, has several guys already committed. Some of Michigan's guys, like Jaden Mangum, have already committed to their next school. So teams are not waiting around. Michigan is just a little bit behind. And, they've got to accelerate the timeline. I think we can't fully judge it until the cycle is over.
Yeah, because as was the case during the coaching search, like what is true one day or even in an hour of a day could be completely irrelevant in the next hour or so. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out. I know that doesn't satiate the people who have questions about why isn't this happening yet? Or who's, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about that? We are as day to day and hour to hour with it as a lot of you guys are, minute to minute in a lot of cases. The only other thing I'd say, John Henry Daly, maybe their top target right now, the edge rusher out of Utah, seems like he's going to visit Notre Dame, or they said early this week, so maybe that's tomorrow. I would have to think that unless something happens, he will find his way to Ann Arbor, given that, the buzz that was kind of linking the two when he first entered the portal. So that's going to be something worth keeping an eye on.
And a lot of guys make that swing, the Notre Dame, Michigan swing. So,
and you're from that side of the state of Michigan, kind of where South Bend is close by. So how far is that drive if he were to make it?
Probably 2-3 hours.
Okay.
I don't think it's very far. So I feel like a lot of regular recruits make that swing, and we know he has interest in Michigan. And since he's going to Notre Dame, I would imagine that comes together here, pretty soon. BYU is also an option for him, but he's an All-American player. I know he's recovering from an injury right now. He says he'll be healthy in 6 months, but that would be a huge one. And Michigan needs edge rushers.
They do badly. We have a super chat here as we switch gears here real quick. From Michigan Go Blue 1234. He says, is there a basketball game on Michigan's schedule that you think they will be challenged?
Yes, there is. I just can't tell you which one right now, because the way they're playing right now, it looks like they're never going to be challenged. But no, I mean, you go to Mackey and play Purdue, you play at Michigan State, it could be a challenge, although it's tough to envision it right now with the way Michigan's playing. They make every single opponent look the same, but they will be at some point. I truly believe it. But at the same time, it might be a little while here. You have the West Coast swing, so that could be challenging, even though Washington and Oregon aren't all that good. But next week, with the travel involved and the teams being at home, you already traveled out west to Vegas, but everyone had to travel to get there. No one was playing at their home gym. This is a little bit different. Maybe you come out flat or something like that. Who knows? Something's going to happen. It's going to surprise us. But then afterwards, it's going to be like, that made sense. I remember, Anthony, people were talking about back in 2021, that year, could this Michigan team go undefeated? I think they started 11-0, but it was kind of the weird year where they only had 5 non-conference games, and they were blowing teams out. And then they went to Minnesota, and they lost. And it was like, okay.
This team stinks.
Yeah, right. But eventually you're just going to not play your best game. The other team's going to play really well. But, man, that gap. I mean, you didn't even play well against USC, and you won by 30. So it might be a while. And I know you wrote about this this morning, 6.6% chance for Michigan to go undefeated. Like, that's not that high of a chance. It's overwhelmingly unlikely that it's going to happen. But,
It's kind of high for January 5th.
It's there though. Yeah, there is a chance. Like there is a legitimate chance. What if their first loss is in the Big Ten tournament? Or I don't know that you want to go into the NCAA tournament undefeated. It doesn't bode well for the last few teams that have done it. Gonzaga in 21, I think it was. You had the Kentucky team about 10 years ago. The last team to go undefeated in 1976, Indiana Hoosiers, the year Dusty May was born. His Hoosiers did it, but that was a long time ago at this point.
There you go.
49 years ago.
History is like poetry, it rhymes. So maybe that's what happens here. I'm with you though. I'm not rooting for them to lose. I'm going to make that clear, but like, I'm curious to see what it looks like if/when it actually happens, because I thought that the game that they played Friday night was probably the worst collective game they've played since the Wake Forest TCU games, and they still win by 30. And they're not making threes, but they still score 96 points. Like, it makes no sense.
It's unbelievable. And I asked, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I asked Dusty May about this today. Remember last year, the whole theme with the turnovers, he kept lamenting them and saying, like, we just don't have the margin of error to turn the ball over and still win. And now they've built up this margin for error in all these areas. Defensive rebounding, they don't turn it over as much anymore. The 2-point field goal percentage on offense, the 2-point field goal percentage on defense. They're forcing more turnovers. We saw that with 21 forced turnovers against USC. Like, all these areas they can win, so that when they do shoot 6 of 30 from 3, or they do have a game where they turn it over a lot, they can still survive and win in blowout fashion. It's incredible to watch because they can dominate pretty much every area. But I'm with you. It makes no sense whatsoever that they can win a game like that by 30. Who wins by 30?
Which is funny because, like, they are so – Dusty and his staff are so analytically driven. They take in and track a lot of data, and even their data probably can't really explain a lot of what's going on. But the data says that this is one of the best, as of right now, one of the most dominant teams in not just college basketball, but in college basketball the last 25 years or almost 30 years since Ken Palm's been tracking data. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, they'll be challenged, especially because I think officiating in this league can be so piss poor at times. I think that they might get out officiated out of a game, and that's not making excuses. It's just I've been watching Big Ten basketball my whole life. So I want to go back to football and take this super chat from Richard T. Also Brooks, who says, AB, I hear you, but excuses are always available. No one cares about any of that. Will the ticket prices for next year decrease because of the head coaching change? The standard is what it is. Meet it and exceed. I mean, that's a harsh way to look at it. I'm not making excuses for them, though. I'm trying to explain what's going on. Now, 2 weeks from now or 11 days from now, if the portal closes and you didn't retain as many guys as you would have liked to, and you didn't get maybe the Utah guys or a couple other top targets that you were in on, I'll be right here saying that, yeah, they not only kind of botched it, but they were victims of it as well. And I just think they're kind of, because of decisions that were made by someone that is no longer here, they are now fighting an uphill battle that I think the staff, and I'd love to talk about the staff here in a minute, has a chance to really make up a lot of ground and kind of is already.
Yeah, they have to do it. Like, I can't sit here and say they're not going to do it because I don't know whether or not they're going to. So I'm just not willing to judge it until it's complete. But as we go along, you can analyze what's going on, and there's no question it's a slow start. But I do think the reasons we laid out are pretty good reasons, maybe not excuses, but reasons why there is this slow start. And there could be things going on behind the scenes. Look, I mean, this is a staff that really no one in Ann Arbor has ties to, and they don't have ties to Ann Arbor. So there could be a lot going on behind the scenes that isn't being reported on right now. And then, a couple things come together quickly. And, sometimes in the portal too, a guy will commit and it'll be like, oh yeah, he made a surprise visit 2 days ago. Like, so it's kind of a mystery. I know with the agents out there, they want more publicity. So there is some intel out there, but I'd say just, we'll continue to watch what they do and analyze it as we go, but not fully evaluate it until it's over.
Yeah. My only point is I'm not going to sit here on January 5th and stomp my feet and throw a tantrum that, Michigan hasn't been linked to a Cam Coleman, or that, oh, if Bryce Underwood comes back or he doesn't, like, are they going to get in on a guy like Sam Levitt? Like, I think that's what a lot of people have correlated the fact that the wife of the richest man in the world is a donor to Michigan, and that means that they can just get whoever they want and target whoever they want. And it's like Toys R Us, where you're on this sugar rush of a shopping spree and you just shove everything off the shelves into your cart. That's not who they are, and that's not how they're going to build this thing. And I have no issue with not tapping the brakes, but being very deliberate about making sure you have your business taken care of at home first, because I do think the way to build something where you're just not doing this portal dance every year, and for some schools it's going to work. Indiana, they're not going to have, the high school recruiting, although that could change now moving forward, but they're trying to win now and fire money at guys that they know that are known commodities. Where Michigan, I think that investing in high school talent is still a deft use of your resources, and using the portal to fill needs instead of build your team, I think at Michigan is still the way to go. Obviously, yeah, this needs to pick up here, but I can explain the early days of how this is all taken shape. So that's how I feel about
it. And we don't know exactly what Whittingham's philosophy is yet, too. We have to wait and see how he approaches it. And I agree with you. I mean, the top programs really, in the ones that have had sustained success, or at least, been good teams for multiple years, they do it through high school recruiting, not through the transfer portal as much, but you still see it, especially at the quarterback position, maybe a wide receiver here and there. The impact, like Ohio State getting Caleb Downs was kind of that was more of a one-off than it was, a trend that they're going to get a player of that caliber every year. That took Nick Saban leaving Alabama for him to become available. So it's going to be tough to do that. But at the same time, Michigan is a team. If you're going to fill needs through the portal and do the rest of it through high school recruiting, Michigan has a lot of needs right now, especially on the defensive side of the ball and at wide receiver, in my opinion. And then, potentially on the offensive line with, guys possibly leaving that have entered the portal. So they do need to fill them. And I will say, I understand the fans being disappointed that their name isn't mentioned with some of the big time recruits that are out there in the portal, because one of the reasons why Whittingham was excited about the job, and this was such an appealing job for candidates on the list, was because of the resources. So I do think they need to get their hat in the ring there with some of these big time guys. I think they will. But I do understand why it's at least a little bit frustrating early on.
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's just frustrating right now. Like, I'm going to keep reiterating, if 10 days from now, 11 days from now, or that Monday show that we do after the portal is closed, and it's just kind of this piecemeal, nothing burger of a portal cycle, kind of like last year's was, if we're being frank, I'm going to be right there with you criticizing it, and it won't have, we'll just cross that bridge when we get to it. But I want to talk about the staff, because that is where I think a lot of Kyle Whittingham's energy had been in the first week or so on the job. Now you turn the page to the roster and get your guys in here and things like that. But this coaching staff, I mean, Jason Beck, your offensive coordinator, Tony Alford, running backs, Micah Simon will coach the wide receivers, Freddie Whittingham, his brother, will coach the tight ends, Jim Harding, one of the best offensive line coaches in the country, joining Michigan football. Jay Hill will coordinate the defense. Lou Esposito is back. Lewis Powell, again, talk about John Henry Daly. Lewis Powell was his position coach. There are more links there than there not. That's a great addition for them. Alex Whittingham, a guy who is obviously Kyle Whittingham's son, but has been with the Chiefs the last 8 years, been part of 5 Super Bowl teams, been a guy who won 3 Super Bowls there, coaching and assisting in a variety of roles. He's going to coach the linebackers. They pulled Gennaro Guilford from BYU as their cornerbacks coach. Kerry Coombs is staying on. the names go on and on. Coy Detmer Jr. will coach quarterbacks. Fred Jackson is back. Marcus Hagans will help with the wide receivers. David Denham is back. Garrett Clausen is back to work with the special teams. Tyler Stockton, they just officially announced him as the safeties coach. There are guys that are in these sort of analyst roles that are way overqualified for that compared to some of the guys that were in there before. So this staff looks damn good to me. And I know there's some people like, oh, you come to Michigan, you've got the resources, you should be able to pick from every school in the country. Now, I think this is a good mix of guys that have track records that Whittingham is comfortable with, that what they bring to the table. And then I think Jason Beck is an up-and-comer. Tony Alford is maybe the best running backs coach in the country. I really like the makeup of this staff and their ability to get the most out of whatever this roster looks like.
With the rule change a couple of years ago where analysts or any support staffer can coach on the field, you're seeing Kyle Whittingham bring in a staff that's, the safeties coach. Like, you can have 10 coaches that are guys that can go on the road and recruit, but you can have as many position coaches as you want, including guys that can't go on the road and recruit. And I think that per different, recruiting cycle throughout the year, you can change which 10 are on if you want one guy on for this, period on the road and then one guy off and then flip-flop it the next time, you can do that depending on what, prospects you want to go travel and see and all that. But it's a big staff that's coming together and is probably going to continue to get bigger. A lot of experience. That is for damn sure. There weren't any hires that were just convenient, kind of like what Sharon Moore made at the beginning of his tenure. J.B. Brown as special teams coordinator just because he was here as an analyst, those sorts of things. But, less ties to the Midwest. You do have a few guys that do have ties to the Midwest. Jim Harding, Tony Alford, Kerry Coombs. Less ties to, maybe the South as well. So we'll see, how those guys can recruit and what kind of name brand recognition they have on the recruiting trail. And, that could be a challenge too early on until they get established. Even Kyle Whittingham, when, Bryce Underwood was talking down at the bowl game after the hire was made one day before, he said, yeah, I don't know much about him, and I think that there is just a little bit of a difference. Kids that grew up in the Midwest, I know Utah played Michigan 3 times during Kyle Whittingham's head coaching tenure there, but just not as familiar with some of the coaches on the West Coast. Utah wasn't in the mix for a lot of the blue chip recruits that Michigan ended up getting. So there's a gap there that I think they need to close, but surely he got guys that he trusted, that he trusts, to come in that knows the systems that he wants to put in place. So I do think it's a really, really good staff. And now they got to attack the roster. And then, and I think winter conditioning, he said, starts next week. So it'll really get rolling there. And I believe the strength coach coming with him, it's not official yet, but Doug Alicia from Utah, which another guy he trusts and obviously did a good job given if you watch Utah football, they had a good strength coach. So that's exciting as well.
It's just, you go up and down and we write the staff stories and you look at their backgrounds, and it's just the complete opposite of what we were writing about 2 years ago when the staff came. It's like, oh, well, this guy spent a couple years at Ferris State. Or no, they hired this guy from Western Michigan. And, oh, well, he had a cup of coffee here as an analyst. But now it's, I think the world of Jim Harding as an offensive line coach. Jason Beck as a guy who's an up-and-comer, and I really, really like what he did with Utah's offense this year. Jay Hill is a guy who coached at a high level at the FCS level at Weber State, and then has coordinated some really good defenses, and is I think more than anything else, a connector on defense. Puts guys in the right spots. Players respect him. He's beloved in the locker room. I like the chemical makeup of it. I think it's a pretty competent staff. I think that we talked about this before too, where I think we talk about the resources and the brand. I think the Michigan brand can kind of bridge some of the gaps in terms of, oh, well, they don't have a tie to the Midwest per se. Well, they used to say Kerry Coombs basically had an office down at Cass Tech. He's sticking around. Tony Alford has coached for Blue Bloods in this part of the country. So that there are guys who, and I'm sorry, I think Mike Lynch, another guy who has a lot of experience former Syracuse offensive coordinator, also spent some time at Bowling Green. So there are guys on this staff that have the chops, that have the know-how. We'll see how they use it, but Kyle Whittingham said he was going to lean on guys that he knew, and then bring in other guys that filled in the gaps in other areas. And I feel like he's done a pretty good job with that.
I agree. And even, some of the guys from West Coast, they have experience elsewhere too, like Stockton, the safeties coach, having played at Notre Dame and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be, and recruiting is different now, as you were kind of starting to allude to there, where, the brand recognition, the resources, the money, another way of saying money.
Let's be honest. I mean, it really is more about the money now than it is, oh, well, X coach has never really gone into Ohio and recruited before.
Right. But there's an X factor there too of relationships, because when the money is somewhat equal, then it comes down to other things too, now that everyone can pay players. But so there's a lot of factors to it. Everything's individual basis, but again, I'm more excited and interested to see how it plays out than anything, because we just don't know. There's so much unknown. I mean, Kyle Whittingham is the head coach at Michigan. 10 days later, it still feels pretty crazy to say.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre, and more than anything else, he's bizarrely competent coming off of what they just came off of. So, like, we think we know what it will look like. We think we know what to expect, but we'll see how it all comes together. But in the early days of it, I'm not a guy who grades hires or says this is a home run, this is a grand slam, any of that. But
it's an A+ home run.
It's an A+ home run. Everything makes sense to me. So, any other thoughts on the staff? Like I said, I think now, I mean, I see Twitter comments and board comments from, oh, do they really need to hire the assistant wide receivers coach instead of spending time on spending time in the transfer portal? It's like, well, I mean, you could do all these things at once. And the more lieutenants you have, the more ties you have to guys that might be in the portal, that it's all part of it.
Yeah, the more guys that can work on the transfer portal. It's not that hard to hire somebody. There's a lot of hours in a day. The days are long, but the years are short. But yeah, there's no question they have to get things going. But with winter conditioning starting next week, you do have a team to coach too, coming up here as well, and then some time before spring ball. So no, I think I got nothing else. I think we'll see how these guys recruit here in short order out of the portal, and we'll see how they coach them up in the spring, and we'll hear from the players about how they are. That's one of my favorite things with the new coach is, to hear about how they're coaching up their position groups and their units, defense, offense, special teams. So it'll be good. And we've already seen one of the coordinators in action. Kerry Coombs did a pretty good job in the bowl game. So that's exciting too.
Yeah. I mean, competency is the key word, because they finally brought in a competent special teams coordinator. And that was the best they looked since before the college football playoff, the year they won the national title. So shout out to him for that. We have a super chat that just came in. This is from Lone Omnipotence. What a name here. $4.99 says that this staff has Gus familiar recruiting in Cali and Texas, so we could see a boost in those regions. I don't know. Guys familiar. Yeah. They could see. And Michigan has gone down out to California and gone to Texas to recruit before. So it's not like this isn't like the Oregon Trail where Kyle Whittingham's staff is getting in the wooden wagon and seeing this region of the country for the first time. Like Michigan's gone out there before.
There's going to be a California maize rush, I think.
All right. That's it. All helps. It helps to have contacts in all those regions. So we'll see. Maybe they can get someone who has a little experience down in SEC country. But so far, I think they've done a nice job filling the gaps there. Before we take questions, I would like to talk basketball for a little bit. We try to earmark. It feels almost disrespectful, the amount that we haven't talked about the number 2 team in the country a whole lot over these last few weeks. But when you've been playing, one game every 8 days for really kind of the month of December, and then everything that's gone on went on, that's just kind of how it goes. But Michigan, 13-0. They currently have the nation's 6th longest active win streak. Friday, they beat USC 96-66. We talked about that game a little bit earlier. The week ahead, Penn State tomorrow night in Happy Valley. Ken Pom gives Michigan a 98% chance of winning that game. And then they return home on Saturday for a blue out at, I believe tip-off is 1:06 p.m. in Ann Arbor against Wisconsin. Another 97% chance of victory there from Ken Pom. You look at their Ken Pom page, and it's 98, 97, 91, 94, 94, 96, 93. And then they go play a game to end the month of January at Michigan State, where they have a 74% chance of victory, which I don't care what the analytics say. Anytime you go into East Lansing, it's a coin flip at best. So this team is rolling, man. I know you talked to Dusty May on Monday. Anything, what did the head coach have to say about a team that he said Friday is on a heater, but all glory is fleeting?
That just seems to be the theme of the year because they have to continue to improve, fight off complacency. He said that Sunday's practice was one of the best of the year, and that's kind of an indicator that there hasn't been any complacency so far. So we'll see if that can continue. But I mean, you just see it with this group that they're relentless, and they do play to a higher standard. It's not just beating the team that you're playing. It's kind of just playing really good ball. And I will say it was interesting. He got asked, do you think a close game would be good? Maybe even a loss. Some fans are arguing that. And I may argue that. I think I mentioned it earlier, right? Like, you don't necessarily want to go into the NCAA tournament undefeated, although you do. Doesn't work out that well. It's a lot of pressure overall, but you don't know if the loss for some of these teams is because they came in undefeated or if they were just going to lose anyway. But he said, no, as long we'll be fine if we play a close game, if we play really well and the other team plays really well too, but we just want to keep playing exceptionally well each and every time out there. So, and he said, no, I don't want to play a close game. I don't want to be in a one possession game. We saw what happened last year when we played Minnesota, and then you can leave yourself vulnerable to losing on a buzzer beater. And then that leaves yourself vulnerable to missing out on an opportunity to win a championship because it can come down to one game. I don't know that it's going to, the way this thing's going this year, but a lot can change. But so far, I think Michigan could win this thing by multiple games in the Big Ten. But no, I think that it's kind of the same old story with this team, which it's one of the most exciting teams to watch, but the analysis is basically the same thing after every game because they just keep doing the same things that are hard to do really well over and over and over, which makes this team so special and have such a high upside.
First off, I mean, Clayton does a wonderful post-game pod after every Michigan basketball game. Please check those out if you are interested in Michigan hoops. I almost kind of feel like that until something crazy happens with them, we might have to table talking about them here because of what's going on with football. And because, like you said, it's more of the same. And that's no disrespect in them, but they are a bird in hand and known commodity right now. And until the AP voters wise up, which they're starting to, it's getting real close. I think 32 first place votes for Arizona, 29 for Michigan. They're going to, sooner rather than later, that's going to flip. Michigan will be the number one team, but I don't think they really care. And as long as they keep handling their business, barring some kind of injury, which again, a quick injury update, seems like Namari Burnett's going to be good to go tomorrow, and Yaxel Lendeborg is a game time decision.
Yeah, day-to-day game time decision. Dusty May is going to leave it up to the trainers and Yaxel to decide if he can go. I know a lot of fans are saying, hey, just sit him out for the Penn State game. I guess you never know what happens on the road in the Big Ten. Penn State did play Illinois pretty tough at the Palestra the other day. But you would imagine you could survive that one without Yaxel Lendeborg with the bruised calf. Wisconsin, a little bit tougher of a challenge, although that one's at home. And then, hopefully get him fully healthy by the West Coast trip out to Washington and Oregon next week. Oh, do we have a player coming back?
This is a portal out, actually. Michigan running back Bryson Kuzdal is entering the NCAA transfer portal, according to Pete Nakos. So Bryson Kuzdal, a standout late in the year, is not going to stick around, apparently.
That's a little bit disappointing for running back depth. Although if Justice Haynes comes back, and you have Savion Hyder and Jordan Marshall as well.
Wait, did you say if Justice Haynes comes back? Is that possible?
If Justice Haynes comes back, then those carries are going to be tough to come by, and he has some good film out there now. So the team, I think we talked about it after the Northwestern game where I said Bryson Cusdahl, the way he ran was admirable in that game, and he kind of reminded me of like a Northwestern back, and that's not an insult. Someone, a program of that level would actually take him and use him.
They got a steady dose of him at Wrigley Field this year too.
Exactly, they got an up close look, but or somebody else. And I know we talked to him after the Citrus Bowl, and I asked him if he plans on being here, and he said, "I'm going to be here until I'm not. This is where I want to be." I think was the exact quote. I might be off by a word or two, and I took that as all right, not 100%. Kendrick Bell said I'll 100% be here, but Bryson Cusdahl, that I thought that was an answer that was like, yeah, I mean, I'll probably be here, but we'll see how
that's the old Jim Harbaugh. I'm here as long as they want me.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if they tell you, hey, there aren't going to be many carries for you here, you're going to get, X amount of money, and then some other program offers you more, then, you got to do what you got to do, I guess. But he definitely got his chance this year. He came up big in some games that they needed to win. So, hats off to him. And he's the pride of Grand Rapids. I'll very gladly give him that title.
Pride of what?
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah, but what school? You always say the school with him.
Forest Hills Eastern as well.
That's right. Shout out. And he's technically from Ada, isn't he?
They switched it on his bio from Ada to Grand Rapids, but the Forest Hills Eastern Hawks, that's where he's from. Yep.
We had a super chat that I missed from Zion Schaub for $2. It says, "Sorry, late to the party. Did we lose the whole offensive line?" Jake Guarnera's in the portal. Andrew Sprague is in the portal. I think there's a decent chance that Jake Guarnera is back. Blake Frazier back. Andrew Babalola back. We know that for sure now, given the LFG 147 campaign. But no, have not lost the whole O-line.
And Caden Strayhorn, who stepped in at right guard in the Citrus Bowl, also gone to the portal. He is visiting Alabama. Obviously some ties to Alabama, or at least, people who were at Alabama. His dad played for Nick Saban at Michigan State. And he was a guy that had a promise. Like, I was excited when Michigan landed him initially. Didn't play particularly well, but he was a true freshman in that Citrus Bowl. But that's a loss for down the road. It's one that you can make up though, and then some. And I don't think he was, going to be contending for a starting spot next year. So you can afford to lose that one. But yeah, you have lost some pieces now from the O-line. It is somewhat concerning, given that you do need 8-9 guys that are capable. We saw that this year with all the injuries.
Comment here from your average fan who said, if On3 said he's back, he'll be committed to Arizona by the end of the night. I don't know what that means. Explain that for me, because I'm interested in it. But I want to take some questions from our
Blake Frazier and Andrew Babalola tweeting that they're back and they'll be at Arizona. Good luck.
It could be in reference to Kuzdal. It could be reference to Guarnera. I don't know. My head is spinning still.
There you go.
What's that?
Oh, nothing. I'm just saying, I'm as confused as you, but
gotcha. Dedoy for $5. As I try to pull up, everything's freezing up on me here, so give me just a second. Dedoy for $5 says, "I'm late to the party tonight. What's a reasonable expectation for Coach Witt next season to keep me from being an unreasonable fan like Bama or OSU?" I feel like I don't want to plant a flag on this, but I still see that there is a potential path to 10 wins in a playoff berth. I don't think that's a hot take.
What's the team? What's the roster? Like,
exactly. Like, I'm
answering that. Answering that right now is just too hard. I think we'll have a better idea in a few weeks when you get these guys enrolled that you're going to bring in through the portal, and you figure out who's going to stay too. So it's very early. The portal is on what day? 1, 2, 3, 4, and out of 14. So we're going to have to see. But I think his expectation is to make the playoffs. As he said, playoffs every year. He said that himself. So
that's why you take this job.
Right. And I think he's confident in his ability to get them there. So I think that's a fair expectation in terms of like a blanket statement. But as far as me deciding what my expectation is for this team, I have to see what the roster comes together and looks like.
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't know. I don't want to go there because someone will clip it and say, "Oh, you said that they'd be 10-2, and then they didn't get anyone in the portal, and then they went 8-4 this year." So I'm not even going to open myself up to that. Question from the board. We will take one from a lot of it's stuff we've talked about. Portal targets. Blue Dog 6 says, "Who are the most likely players from Michigan in the portal that we retain?"
Michigan guys that are leaving that they could get to come back?
Yes. Guys that they can retain that are in the portal.
Cole Sullivan, Jake Guarnera. I feel like we've hammered that one a lot throughout the show. I think those are possible, right? But you're going to have to pay up. And now that they're in the portal, they have more leverage. So it does change the dynamic a little bit, but I do think you have a chance, especially Guarnera. If he connects with Jim Harding, the new offensive line coach, and likes what he hears, and you have some classmates that you're tight with, like Blake Frazier, deciding to stay, that could be a feather in Michigan's cap in terms of getting closer to keeping him.
Ginger Wolverine 1001 says, "What's the holdup with the Utah players coming in, like John Henry Daly and Salise Moa? You'd think that'd be a quick, easy pitch." Well, first off, Salise Moa, I believe a top 50 recruit, had some Michigan interest very late in the cycle even. He would have to enter the portal at this point. Is that correct? Or would he ask out of his LOI? I'm not sure how that works, but
I think before he enrolls, he would just have to ask out of the letter of intent, I believe.
Okay. He's not done that. So as of now, he's not available. There's not even, I wouldn't even say it's a holdup with these guys. Like, I think it's possible that that Daly is here in the next 48 hours for a visit. I don't think that's, if he's going to Notre Dame, I would have to think that he's going to make a couple-hour trip up the road to meet with Whittingham. Smith Snowden is going to visit, I believe Wednesday is what EJ reported, or that's what's out there at the moment. So I think that this is a big week for the ball really starting to roll here. And then I would be surprised if by later this week we had some commitments. I just don't think that you can get guys to commit without being on campus, but it's really the visits where you're like, okay, this is serious now.
100%. And I think, like you said, this is the week where you got to get these guys on campus first. And then, and they're going to weigh their options too. Like some of these guys might have been portal bound either way, even after playing for Kyle Whittingham this past year at Utah. So they're going to assess their options and look at different teams that are out there for them. And, but Michigan has a leg up, I think, in a lot of those recruitments. So we'll just have to see.
All right, we'll take one more here. Sorry, I should have pre-screened some of these to see what we were going to do. Let's go with, this is from Edgo Blue. He says, "What do you think was a bigger factor in players entering the portal? New unfamiliar coaches or breaking of trust with the program due to Sharon Moore's actions?" And my quick answer to that would be probably for some column A, for some column B, and for some guys a bit of both.
And, teams reaching out and trying to poach your players when you didn't have a head coach, could certainly be a factor there too, right? And no, you're going to have some form of movement either way as well. And I think that things weren't going all that well for Michigan, even though they did win a lot of games this year. I think you were going to see some exits either way, maybe some guys planning on leaving. And then you bring in a staff that a lot of the players didn't have ties to. Maybe it doesn't move the needle enough for some of them. But again, some of them could come back that are in the portal, as we've mentioned many times today. But yeah, it's just a case-by-case basis, I feel like, for just about everybody.
It is. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. We had a rowdy chat this evening. I'll continue to let you guys throw fisticuffs at each other over the next couple of minutes as we close out here. But a lot to cover by the time we do this show next Thursday with hopefully the three of us. Hopefully we'll have a lot more clarity. I feel like we're still kind of in that holding pattern of the calm before the storm, but I do think that the ball is going to be rolling here. And especially now that they're announcing guys that are coming back, I think you're going to have a clearer idea of what the needs are and things like that. So be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more throughout all of this process. And if you're not a member at the Wolverine, head over to thewolverine.com, sign up for your first year with us for 50% off. That's going to get you the intel, the visit knowledge that you so desperately crave. You will get that behind the paywall at the Wolverine. You'll get the access to the message board. You guys can go back and forth with each other on there like you do in the chat. As long as you don't violate board rules, you can do all that there. There's analysis from us, all of it, the complete package. So head on over to the Wolverine today. Take advantage of that. 50% off. It also gives you a year of access to The Athletic. And like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more from the Wolverine. D.Herb says, thanks for all you guys do. Thank you for watching. For Clayton Safey, for our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Monday night, and we'll talk to you again next time.